So here's the first hypothetical. It's this company called Greenwatch, and they make disposable, biodegradable Swatch-like watches, okay? And they're $25 each, and they're coming out with this great new lineup that's going to be designed by all sorts of famous people. And what they want is one consumer to design a watch face for the part of this program. And what that consumer will get is, I'll go back, but what that consumer gets is the entire collection of Greenwatch watches. And 100 runners-up get a sampling of their products. So it's a high-value prize, and what they see is a great Twitter contest where they can kickstart it. They put a tweet out there, and they inspire all sorts of designers or people that like watches or people that are sensitive to the environment to submit their designs and ultimately raise awareness for their launch. So they kick it off, and in their tweet, they have a short code that links to the rules of the contest. And those rules talk about how the tweets are counted, who's eligible for the contest, what the prize value is. And there's also a mention of disclosure. They encourage participants to disclose that their submissions are part of a larger contest. The company's really excited about this. They see it as sort of the next Australian blogger viral video, a viral Twitter campaign, that this is going to really take off. And they expect it to be a huge hit, and the executive team is behind it, the board of directors is behind it, so there's a lot of stakeholders that are committed to this program. And let's say hypothetically they come to WOMA and they say, guys, what do you think of our program? Does this pass your ethical test? And so what do we decide? You know, what would you as a room think of this program? Does this meet the ethical standards set forth by WOMA and the FTC?
Any thoughts? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
The winner is decided by the most tweets. It's quantitative.
Raise of hands, who would give it a pass? That this is a good program, which they all are great programs. Who thinks that it has an ethical flaw? Okay, what do you think?
Well, I'm guessing it's tricky to enforce the disclosures, right? So
Here's the mic.
Let's say, I'm guessing if people are tweeting, check out my design, a lot of them will forget to mention that they work for the company or whatnot. And I guess also you're causing some deep thoughts here about all contests, which is like they're all incented in one way or the other. So, I guess both of those are potentially flaws, but that would kind of be groundbreaking to think about.
Right.
And the assumption is that the legalese, the full details for submission is on that page that they alluded to in the bullet point prior. So it has to be your own work, can't be copyrighted, blah, 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 legalese. That's all covered, correct?
That's all covered. That's the assumption.
I don't know, Judge.
All right. The jury says...
What does the jury say?
There's a couple of cautions. First of all, the WOMA code and FTC guidelines currently make no overt reference to contests. Okay, so it's an area that a lot of us get into as brand marketers, but there are no overt guidelines, codes, rules, etc. for contests currently. However, both FTC and WOMA urge that if you are an organization, agency, brand, etc., entering into some kind of contest or just in general in terms of engagement, that you make sure to disclose any material connection between the consumer and the actual marketer. And in this case, a minimum prize value of $250, if you remember the limited set, 10 edition watches equals $250. While it may seem nominal to all of us in the room, it is classified as a material connection within the FTC guidelines as well as the WOMA code. So in addition, I think you touched on this as well, that we need to have the disclosure in the tweets. So it's right now, the way that the contest is currently structured, that disclosure would not be within the actual tweet itself, or it would be inconspicuous. And one of the things that the FTC looks for is that, and actually mandates within the guidelines, is that the disclosure is clear, it's consistent, it's easy to find, and it's over and over again. So the consumer does not have to go and look for it, search it out, et cetera.
A real-world parallel here is Ann Taylor just had was just sort of passed the mustard with the FTC, but received a public rebuke. And they had an event in which people received a prize. They hosted an event in which people received a prize in exchange for blogging about a new product. And the FTC, they put up a sign at the event that asked people participating in that program to disclose. But part of the FTC's public letter to Ann Taylor specified that it wasn't likely that every attendee saw that sign. And so in this case, the parallel would be, is it likely that every participant in this contest would have clicked that short link, read that legalese, to your point, and found that encouragement to disclose?
And I will attest, as a brand, that is something that our legal department clearly sticks to, is that even though we have the rules page, the expectation by the average consumer is that they're not going to click through. Did you have a question?
Do sponsors have an obligation to get people to take things down if they don't include the disclosure? What do you think? If this went live and half the people didn't do it, is there?
Well, the FTC has said that the brand. By the way, one point that I don't think we've made yet is that liability in these situations rests both with the marketer and with the blogger. And there's a potential maximum fine of $11,000, and as Joe said, the chance for a very public rebuke from the FTC. But the FTC has said they're going to be focusing on the marketer's responsibility here. So really, and I think a lot of our focus here is on what the marketer must do. So I'm sorry, what the question again?
Do you have to enforce?
Yes.
So
The FTC has also said it is incumbent on the brand to monitor compliance. And so that's a step that should be included. And if there's a consistent pattern of non-compliance by the blogger, and this is not specified by the FTC, but WOMA's recommendation, MEAP's recommendation is if you see a specific or a consistent pattern of non-compliance by a blogger that you're working with, then you should no longer work with that blogger as a brand. By the way, we're using the term blogger to really represent any creator of content in social media online.
In the guides, if you read the 78 or so pages, it's pretty clear that it's really a three-pronged responsibility, and it's to require disclosure, to monitor for that disclosure, and to take action or to enforce should that disclosure fail to happen. So it's a three-tiered responsibility for the brands.
Yeah.
So I have the microphone, so so this is a pretty standard announcement contest. I mean, there's point to point. I've seen a number of contests that are even more kind of innovative, where I won't narc on the author, but this author asked people to design the contest, design the prize, and then design the evaluation criteria. So it was a viral contest. How would you go about? Would you criteria require disclosure at each point of the evolution of the contest?
That's interesting.
I think what we want to explore today are sort of. I think what we need to all conclude today is that there's a lot of gray areas, and a lot of these things are judgment calls. The basic principle, though, is is there an incentive that the marketer is placing with the blogger that is causing them to create content? So if an incentive exists or any form of consideration exists, then yes, these rules would kick into place. I mean, that's the basic theory. And I think you're describing a situation where that incentive or consideration is getting a bit remote, especially at the outset of designing a contest that you may or may not end up entering. So it's a judgment call.
You had a contest to build the contest, right?
And something to keep in mind is, if The FTC published guidelines. It didn't publish rules.
Right.
And that's a confusion that I see consistently on Twitter. If the FTC published clear-cut rules, we're not on this stage, right?
Right.
We have a recipe to follow. But the FTC kind of steered the ship, and it's up to us now to figure out which way to go. And that's really what we're doing on this stage is trying to work through this in a conversation. And that's what the MEAP does every time something's brought to the surface, is we get together and discuss it both by the letter of the guidelines and the spirit of the guidelines, and try to come up with a sensible reaction that's in the best interest of the ultimate consumer, that being the most important audience.
Can you clarify, do the WOMA rules or the WOMA guidelines also, are they consistent with the FTC guidelines as far as monitoring compliance? Do they reflect that?
Yes.
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 By the way, for members in the audience, one of the things that the MEAP at WOMA is here for is if you have a program or a contest or something that you're running and you'd like a perspective from WOMA on ethical compliance, we're more than happy to give that perspective. So please feel free to take advantage of that.
So would it be a correction, if you will, or a means to make this more appropriate if at that point where you submit your entry, you have to check the box that says, yes, I've read all the legalese and disclaimers and I realize that I'm being incented with something valued at X dollars. Does that resolve that cautionary element?
That could be the educational component, but then you still, as a brand and as an agency, have to make sure that they're doing what they said they would do. But a checkbox is a great way to demonstrate that you educated somebody as to their responsibilities.
Right.
When we click this.
Yeah.
I understand how you can have disclosure within blogs, but when you only have 140 characters, how do you guys recommend having disclosure? I mean, could it be just hashtag and then it denotes the contest, or how do you guys recommend getting around that?
So in this case, and then we'll get into a couple of other good examples with Twitter, in this instance, our recommendation would be to hardwire, which would be to create a disclosure hashtag, which could be, and this would be a really bad example because it would take up too many characters, but pound Green Watch contest or G Watch contest. So creating a hashtag that would be used in all of the tweets going out about the contest, the designs, et cetera. And so making that hashtag then an eligibility requirement. So if you want to participate in this contest, be involved, be considered, have your design considered, you need to use the hashtag that we've created and improved. And the good news is on that front, having used some of these hashtags in the past for some things that we've run at McDonald's, is that it becomes a good contest sorter. So you're able to quantify how many people are participating in your contest. So there's an ROI benefit to doing some of the ethical disclosure guidelines, and then making sure to incorporate that hashtag into all of your PR messaging, marketing promotions, marketing content, et cetera. So just creating something simple like that and encouraging and requiring people to use that to be considered eligible for the contest. Okay?
Okay, so why don't we move to, we've got 3 more examples, and we're going to get into